Hey, good morning, guys. It's Mr. Birch here. I just wanted to talk over a couple things with you concerning our assignment for Wednesday that will be due. We've been talking about this one since last Wednesday when it was assigned, but we're really beginning to look at countries and how they looked at the Protestant Reformation. So as we'll start here, okay, we can kind of read through. All right, we know about the Reformation. We know it began with that guy right there. Martin Luther, pretty important dude. Remember, he had those 95 theses. He was criticizing the power of the Catholic Church, and he posted those theses, that 95 problems, grievances he had in 1517. So you can see that right there, okay? Nailed him to that church door there in Wittenberg. And then from really there on, using the printing press, using a lot of other avenues, became super important and pretty much kind of like a rock star. People really flocked to him, and that he got a lot of support as he attacked the Catholic Church. And so this Protestant group grew very quickly, all right? And they grew quickly because they had really four problems with the church, and you can read those there, all right? It's the four problems that we've really talked about all along with the Catholic Church there in the 1500s. And Martin Luther did a really good job of saying, hey, this is what's wrong. This is how we can fix it. He was addressing a problem, pointing out a problem, and offering very easy solutions. And so a lot of people, not just in his home country of Germany, but across Europe, really went with it, okay? And someone that really was initially not a huge fan of it, but began to warm up to it was the King of England at the time, Henry VIII. All right, so we will kind of read here how the Reformation really starts in England. All right, and it starts off, I'm going to use green because it starts off pretty good, okay? And good, and when I say good, I mean, and we're going to put that here, okay? He agrees with the Catholic Church. So I'll make that little key there, all right? And so from green, we're going to go to yellow and then red. And red will really kind of signify his break with the Catholic Church. But Henry VIII is a very interesting guy, and someone that we talk about and we study a lot in history because he's one of the only rulers that not only breaks from the Catholic Church, but establishes himself at the head of the religious power in England, in his own country. So this is one of the first times we really see a religious ruler also politically powerful. Okay, not only is he a monarch or the head of the government there in England, but he is also the head of the church. So this is a very interesting thing that we're seeing here. And like I said, not really had been done that much before. Okay, so Henry VIII, as it says there, began his reign as a loyal Catholic. He loved the Pope. He was all for the Pope, and he even wrote a book against Martin Luther in 1521. You can read that there. All right, the Pope then granted him the title of Defender of the Faith in 1521. All right, once again, it's a reward for writing a book that pretty much said, hey, the Pope is doing a great job. Martin Luther's coming out. He's a heretic. Don't listen to Martin Luther. Continue to have your faith in the Catholic Church and in the Pope. All right, so the Pope, like I said, really got a lot of really good defense because Henry VIII wrote this book in favor of him. So the Catholic Church in England at this time in 1521, they're doing great. All right, most people in England are Catholic. They like being Catholic. They have no problems. And so when their king, Henry VIII, is awarded this title, Defender of the Faith, they're very happy about it. Okay. However, from there on, things begin to get a little bit dicey. And they get dicey because Henry VIII was not the most loyal guy in his relationships. So initially, okay, he was first married to Catherine of Aragon. He married her in 1509. She's from Spain. All right. Spain, as we know, all right, is a very Catholic country. Okay, so Henry VIII and the Pope got into a little bit of an argument over Henry's marriage. He wanted a son very, very badly with his wife. All right. However, Catherine had only produced him a daughter in 1516, and her name was Mary. All right. Henry believed that God was punishing him as he had married his deceased brother's wife. So Catherine of Aragon, who I'll point out here once again, she was initially married, I'm sorry, that's a terrible arrow. She was initially married to Henry's older brother. Henry's older brother passes away, unfortunately, so Catherine marries him. All right, Henry VIII. So Henry, in his mind, is thinking, she's not giving me any sons. She's not going to do the job. I'm going to raise a big fuss about how big of a problem it is that Catherine married my brother before me. And God is probably punishing me. All right. So then he begins to look for other avenues to have a son. And in 1517, he falls in love with his mistress, Anne Boleyn. She refused to have an affair with him, but wanted him to marry her. This is super important, okay? Because Anne Boleyn, very, very smart, all right? This will be his second wife. Sorry, I meant to put first over here. Once again, Anne Boleyn made Henry marry him. All right, marry her, all right, instead of having an affair. This essentially, what Anne Boleyn is doing is very smart. This essentially ensures that she's going to become the Queen of England, all right? So, things still a little bit dicey with the Catholic Church. Henry asked in 1527, he asked the Pope, hey, can you grant me an annulment? All right. However, the Pope refused. This is super, super big. All right. The Pope said, no, Catherine of Aragon is your wife by marriage. You cannot break your marriage or get an annulment just because you are not getting a son. All right. So then we see Henry kind of go in a different direction here. All right, things kind of pick up, and I'm going to use red here because his ties with the Catholic Church really begin to break. Okay, so Henry worked to get a divorce, but the Pope kept on refusing. By 1533, Anne was pregnant, and Henry VIII was desperate to find a solution. All right, so he is pretty much acting like his first marriage to Catherine of Aragon over here is over. All right, he's saying, that's over. It's in the past. I'm moving on. Anne Boleyn, she's my focus. All right. So much so that he already has a baby. She is pregnant at this time in 1533 with Henry VIII's child. All right. So a growing number of people, including Anne Boleyn, were Protestants. This also makes things interesting because Anne Boleyn, once again, has some influence here. She is the future Queen of England. And she begins to really, really protest against the Catholic Church in England as they felt the Pope had too much power and control. All right? So this fit in perfectly with what Henry VIII was thinking. Henry VIII was a pretty selfish and really, really, he was very, very very, very minded all the time about how he looked to other people. All right? He wanted to make people understand and make people feel that he was their king and all their allegiance should be to him, all right? So, once again, Anne Boleyn starts telling Henry VIII, hey, the Pope has a little bit too much power over you. Are you sure that going forward with the Catholic Church is such a great idea? There's this really good thing that Martin Luther created, and we see up here, called the Reformation. Why can't we be Protestant? Wouldn't it be a good idea to be Protestant? Okay, so they also complained that the Catholic Church was corrupt, all right? And this made sense because she pointed to monasteries where, which, once again, we talk about Martin Luther lived in a monastery, okay? It's pretty much a Catholic church that the monks run and maintain, okay? But at this time in England, they're very, very wealthy all over England. They have a lot of money coming in from offering, from indulgences, etc., okay? Henry did not really agree with the complaints against the Catholic Church, but he was determined to have a male heir. All right, so then Henry, being the head of the government, pushed Parliament to push through his changes. So he then becomes the head of the new Church of England and granted himself his own divorce in 1533. So I'm going to underline this last sentence here, super important. Okay, so essentially what we have here is a man in Henry VIII being extremely selfish and almost kind of vain and saying, listen, my first wife, she's not getting the job done. I need an excuse to get an annulment, and I need the Pope to grant me this annulment. The Pope, of course, refuses. So then Henry, all right, takes up with a mistress, Anne Boleyn, and moves essentially over to the Protestant side of things. Remember, we have this battle, Protestant Catholic, moves to the Protestant side of things, all right, and essentially breaks ties with the Catholic Church. He declares they're a new Church of England, which is Protestant, okay, and grants himself his own divorce in 1533. All right, so that's just a little, guys, a quick introduction to the English Reformation. We're going to continue to talk about it this week, but I wanted to kind of set the stage here and show you how Henry VIII is acting in accordance to the Catholic Church and Martin Luther with the Protestant Reformation. Okay, he really kind of flips sides, all right, on everybody, and really takes everybody off guard, especially the people of England. All right. Once